guys, Steve Davis here, Stillwater Woodcraft. Down here at the Stillwater River today, doing a little hand line fishing. I thought we'd get into setting some bank lines or limb lines today. We'll go over a little bit of how I rig these up and how I set them. Now the advantages to using a bank line or a limb line versus hand fishing is these bank lines are just like using traps, for catching animals. They're working while you're doing something else. And, we can have 20 lines in the water versus just one on the hand line. We could set these up, before you go to sleep at night. They could fish all night, get up in the morning. Hopefully you got breakfast. You can set them up let them go all day. And hand line fish as you go back and forth checking them. And of course we're down here on the water. Water concentrates game animals. So as we're checking these bank lines and hand fishing, we can also be hunting for game. So this is a very productive way to catch some fish. We'll get around here. We'll look at my bank line setups, and then we'll get into a little bit of how I set them up. Alright, let's look a little bit at what I use for limb lining or bank lining. Those terms to me are the same thing. Just depends on what you want to call it. Okay, first thing you obviously need is some line. Now a good choice is some of this waxed linen line, or what I use generally is this tarred line. Okay, this is called bank line, and it has a asphalt coating on it. In the 18th century this was referred to as cod line. Little bug on the screen. Okay, I think he was volunteering to be bait. So we got this line, okay. Now no matter what you choose, you want something that's going to be pretty strong. You set this up all night, and fish is working this stuff, might be on there for a couple hours. So you want something that's going to hold up. You don't want to lose, the fish obviously, or all your terminal tackle on the end of it. If you're out on a long trek somewhere, it's going to be hard to replace that stuff. So the line, how I store it, is just like this, okay. It's wrapped up on these little keepers, rigged up, ready to go. Now these keepers I made up are just some small pieces of wood. These ones are actually 3 inches by 3/4 of an inch by maybe a hair over 1/4 of an inch thick, with some 5/16 dowel rods put between them. And I believe they're at like a 2 inch or 2 1/4 inch center or something. And you'll also notice there is a small notch cut into that one right there. Now that'll come into play when we go to set these up and leave them. The way I like these is because when you got your line wrapped up on here, this air space in here will give your line a little bit of air so it can dry out. Okay, you can wrap them around anything, wrap them around a stick, whatever. Now I like to have these made up and ready to go. That way they're fast and easy to deploy. You can just carry a roll line and make them up as you go, but that takes some time to get your lines out. And then you have lines that might be, one of them might be 10 foot long, one of them might be 30 foot long. And anyways, Zeke wanted to be in the picture. So if we got them all rigged up like this, they can be deployed, pulled back in, reused. There's plenty of line on there. And I just wrap them up and then take the hook and just stick it down through the line to keep them in my sack. Now all I need to set bank lines is my set of bank lines. I could have a dozen of these made up, and my regular fishing kit, which we've covered in a couple videos now, and just some odds and ends stuff to make repairs to these. And basically I got a fishing trapping set ready to roll. Now you want to check your state laws for legality on setting bank and trot lines or anything like that, okay? Here in Ohio, any bank line has to be marked with either your name and address or your ID number with the ODNR, okay? And that's right here in ink is just wrote my ID number. That way, you know, we can stay legal. If the rabbit cop decides to come down and catch us for something, all our bases are covered. You know, that's an important thing. And you know, they make these rules for a reason. So some of them I'm not sure what reason, but for a reason. So basically that is all there is to a bank line setup kit. So let's just go set some of these. Alright, I found a good place to set this. Now there's a little bit of current out here, so I'm going to add some weight to my bank line. So I want to unroll this. We got a couple different options adding weight to this. One would be some split shot. Two would be just a piece of lead hammered out flat and cut into a strip and wrapped around the line. What I'm going to use is a 60 caliber musket ball, the same thing I use in my Fowler. Now I've taken my awl and just poked a hole in it. Now I'm going to just thread my line through that hole. So I'm going through the ball, and that ends up with a loop. I'm just going to take my end with the hook and go through that loop. And that'll pull down and lock that ball on there. Okay, so now I have a weighted line that will stay in place in the current. So I'm going to bait my hook up. I'm going to pull off enough line to get this out here where I want it. That's another thing, you know, if you make these lines long enough, you'll be able to get them out where you need them. A longer line will reach farther, but a shorter, you know, a longer line will also reach the short, I guess, but the short line won't reach the long, I guess, what I'm trying to get at. So I'm going to pull enough of this off here to get where I want to go. I'm going to loop it up around my hand. And I'm going to give it a toss right out to where I want to be. Okay. I'm going to pull it up here to the bank. I'm going to tie it onto a flexible branch so it has some give. As the fish pulls on this, you want whatever this is tied to have some flex. That acts like a fishing rod and gives the line, you know, the ability to have some shock to it so it doesn't break as easy. Now you're not always going to have a place where you can tie this to a flexible pole, and there's ways to get around that. So let's move up here. I'll show you how I tie these on, and we'll look at that. Alright guys, I had to move up here in the woods a little bit to find something flexible to tie the end of this bank line to. So we got our line going out into the water and our keeper here in our hand. What we're going to do is come around this tree. We're just going to throw some kind of quick release in it. Okay, I like to just go around my standing end, back around my tag end, around my standing end, and a quick release taut line hitch. Okay, so all I have to do is pull that loop and the whole thing comes loose and I can fight my fish. Then I'm going to slide it down tight against this tree. Okay, now why I want that tight is because when this fish is fighting this line, I don't want it rolling around and abrading my line against this tree bark. That's a lesson I had to learn the hard way. So all I got to do is pull that loop and now my line's free. Like I said, quick release taut line hitch works really well. Any other kind of you know, quick release knot that you can cinch down, I'm sure will work just as good. So we got that cinched down. Now I mentioned on this winder this little notch I had carved in here, and that is for nothing other than when I have this tied off, I bring that line through that notch and it'll just let my keeper
hang there. If I can get my camera to move. I'll let my keeper hang there. It just kind of keeps it up out of the mud. Okay, there's something we can do if this pole doesn't have enough spring. We take our line and just throw an overhand loop in it and bring that back through, creating a loop. Okay. Now what that'll give us is if we pull that down pretty tight, and this line being asphalt coated, as that fish pulls and pulls, okay, that loop's going to give a little bit until it gets to the end. Then it's going to pull out. Now that isn't a perfect setup because eventually, you know, it's going to pull out, and then you're going to have a pretty, you know, non-flexible line. But it's better than nothing. So there's just a real quick way, you know, to set up mini fishing lines. Like I said before, you know, we could have 20 lines in the water fishing while we're out gathering wood or sleeping or doing whatever else we're doing. Check with the legality of setting bank lines and stuff in your state. In Ohio, you know, the laws are pretty simple to get around, but you don't want to get hung up for doing something not right. Get out this summer and try some of this stuff out. Reading about it and watching me is good, but getting out and doing it yourself is how you own the skill. So this has been Steve Davis with Stillwater Woodcraft. I thank you for your views, all your support. We'll see you on the next one.